there. And so I'm taking this major, of course, for all the right or wrong reasons, however you want to look at it. And I'm also bartending my way through school and playing some music out at different nightclubs and bars around Raleigh. And I actually really, really loved that job. I loved that scene. And it was not because of the late nights and the partying and all that stuff. I actually really loved it. 5 o'clock happy hour would come. I'd have all my regulars, and you'd have a guy with a white collar who's a CEO of some company sitting next to a construction worker, next to a school teacher, next to a stay-at-home mom, next to somebody that's just lost their job. And everybody's on the same playing field. Nobody's looking up or down at anybody else. Everybody's there just to kind of forget about their day, to talk about sports or politics or whatever, and just there's none of this up and down stuff. So to me, it was really about the people, why I loved being a bartender. It was the relationships that brought me back every day with a smile on my face, and when I actually couldn't wait to get to my job. But I also got to the point at that same time where I had a great friend of mine, her name's Tasha Sullivan, and she sat me down one night. I'd just gotten done playing a gig at this club, and y'all, I'm not even a great musician. I'm not any American Idol. I'll never win anything like that. I sing stuff like Johnny Cash. I could be like, I hear the train a-coming. It's rolling around the bend. You don't have to have an amazing voice to do that. In fact, I could wake up with a cold that morning and sound better, sound more like Johnny Cash. So I'm getting done with the gig. I'm sitting at the bar, and she looked over at me, and she's like, is this it? Is this all you're going to do with your life? You're going to bartend, maybe finish your degree, and that's it? And I said, well, I don't know. I hadn't really thought much about it. I don't, yeah, sure. She's like, you're better than that. If you sell yourself short, and this is all you do for the rest of your life, I might be your best friend, but I'm going to be pretty pissed at you. And it was the first time, actually, that somebody had been very honest with me, somebody that I trusted, but that did it in an encouraging way and said, you can do better. Because most of my life, I'd seen my coaches, my parents, my teachers, they'd put their arms around my brothers and sisters and cousins and say, you're going to do great things with your life. And then they put their arm around me and be like, Doc, we just hope you stay out of prison, buddy, And that was it. So it was strange to have somebody encourage me like that and think that I could do better. And so I took a break from school, from bartending. I went home. My parents were living in a small mountain town in the mountains of North Carolina. And it was really strange. One night, really late, I was kind of in between sleep and not quite asleep, not quite awake. And I had this phrase over and over in my head. And it was the phrase, wine to water. Wine to water. And I couldn't get it out, so I woke up, grabbed a pad and a pen, and I was thinking, I write a little bit of music too. Maybe this is the inspiration for some, kind of country song. And so I started writing it down. And right when I stared at it on the page, my insides got all knotted up. And I was looking at the words, and obviously I'd heard it the other way around. My old man was a preacher man growing up, and he told me about the first miracle water to wine. And actually, that was my favorite one because it proved that Jesus guy was probably way cooler than what I had thought about growing up. Like, there was a party, it ran out of booze, and he made a bunch of wine so it would continue. And I'm like, man. So I've heard it the other way around, but why is it backwards? And I just kept staring at that last word, water. And I felt like I was supposed to know something. And I probably shouldn't say this to this crowd here, but up until then especially, I was probably the most technologically unsavvy person that you'll ever meet in your entire life. And so I just heard from some friends at school that there was this thing called Google out there that you could go in and type in like questions and information, and it would just spit back answers to you, So I go down and get on my parents' computer, and I type in, water issues. Actually, it's probably more like water issues, water problems, and what filled up that screen was what changed my life. The very first thing I saw was 1.1 billion people with a B don't have access to clean drinking water. I remember staring at that and thinking, that can't be right. I'm not a math major, but I'm pretty sure there's only 6 or 7 billion people in the world. So if over one of those billion doesn't have access to clean water, I'm pretty sure that I would have heard about this by now. So I'm pretty sure this Google thing is all jacked up. There's no way that it could be right. But sure enough, one search after another, one UN article after another, over 1 billion people. And then the next article just did it in for me. It was from the WHO, and it said that more children in our world die from dirty water than anything else. And then it listed 3 more. The second one was one that I'd heard plenty about, HIV/AIDS. Some of my favorite musicians, they do the red campaigns, and they wear the ribbons, and I heard plenty about that. The third one was malaria. I learned in school that malaria killed more of our soldiers in Vietnam than bullets. I knew that was pretty bad. And the last one, I didn't know much about it. It was tuberculosis. The third was tuberculosis. And I didn't know much, but there was this game I used to play when I was younger in school that was called Oregon Trail. And you'd try to, get all the way to Oregon with your family. And my wife would always die from tuberculosis. So I don't know what it was, but I knew it was pretty bad. So the next thing I saw just shocked me. It said, dirty water kills more than all 3 of those combined together. Yet it receives less than 20% of the funding in the research, while those other 3 receive over 80%. I just remember staring at that and thinking, that's just not right. And I think that was the very first night that, I always had this voice in my head, I felt like that, just said, you're nobody. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? I think you can do something about this. I think it was the first time I just decided I'm gonna shut that voice off, and I'm gonna try. And so I tried to do one thing. I didn't have the concept to have this great international organization that's in 15 different countries around the world. I just wanted to do one event, raise money for maybe help one family or one village. And so I took that pad, and instead of writing some cheesy country song that would have never done anything anyway, I just jotted out the concept for an event. And I looked at, the resources I had as a bartender, and I thought, I've got plenty of access to booze, which is really important if you're going to have a successful event. So I can get booze, and I got live music from yours truly right here, so I got some entertainment. I can get a free place from, a local club owner. Within about a month and a half time, this was February 2004, I had put on the very first Wine to Water event. And by the end of the night, over 300 people had showed up. We raised about $5,000 or $6,000. And I remember counting that money. I'd never seen that much money in one place at one time. And it was the very first time I felt like, it worked. Something I did actually worked. And then that same night, there was a restaurant owner that came and said, hey, that was awesome. Can we do that at my place? And I'm like, sure. So did another event a month later. Another few thousand comes in. I opened a P.O. box, a bank account, and people started sending in checks. And before we knew it, we got to like tens of thousands of dollars in a bank account. And then I started freaking out because I didn't have any charity status or nothing. I may have been doing something illegal. I don't even know. I started taking money, and I'm like, yeah, sweet. So I'm good. I didn't break any laws or anything. But I started looking at, well, how am I going to get this money to these people here? I've never been overseas. And it'd be great to be the guy that gets to go over and drill the well and build the water filter or whatever these people do, but I don't know how to do that work. So I started thinking, the best thing I could do is just take all this money and just give it away to somebody that's already doing great work. So I found a local organization that actually had some great water projects. And I got a meeting with their top guy, got set in his office. He came in and sat down and was very direct and said, what can I help you with? His name was Kenny Isaacs. And I said, when I get nervous, I talk really fast. So I said, Mr. Isaacs, my name's Doc Hendley. I'm a bartender in Raleigh, and I've raised like tens of thousands of dollars, and I just want to give it to you. And he's like, slow down, Doc. You're a bartender in Raleigh, and you've raised a lot of money. And you just come in here, you're ready to give it to me. And you're not skimming off the top, taking any for yourself? No, sir. And you're just going to keep doing this, all volunteer? Yes, sir. He said, well, why? Why would you do that? And I thought for a minute, and I said, I'm not really sure why. I just know that something's changed in me since I've started doing this, and for the first time in my life, I feel like I have the ability to accomplish something, but not for myself, to change the world around me and to help somebody else out. So if it's okay, I'm just going to keep doing this and keep giving you the money. And he said, I tell you what, I got a better idea. How about you come work for me? You're getting ready to finish school. I'll send you anywhere in the world you want to go. I'll teach and train you how to do this work. And then you can come back after your time's up and continue to grow this organization, because it seems like you know how to raise the money, and then we'll just give you that field knowledge and you can put the two together. And so I almost fell out of my chair, of course, and I said, yes, that would be sweet. And his next question was, well, where do you want to go? And I said, well, Mr. Isaacs, I don't know much about the world. I'm not a geography or geology major or whatever majors in the world. But I think if you just send me to the worst place, and then we'll call it even. And people think I was being, maybe brave or courageous by asking that, and that's not the case at all. Actually, what I was thinking is if I didn't view myself as the most intelligent person in the world, I figured that if I went to the worst place in the world, I'd still have a pretty good impact. That was my thought process. So it kind of went between Afghanistan. He's like, it's pretty bad. Obviously, there's a war going on there, only a couple years after September 11th. But we've got a team on the ground. They can help you get acclimated and figure out what you need to do. There's this other place in Sudan, in the western region, called Darfur. It's in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa. There's a massive water crisis, but there's also a genocide and a civil war going on there. And, there's nobody there. So when you get there, you'll be one of the first people on the ground for us, and you'll have to just kind of figure it out on your own. And I'm like, desert, genocide, war, alone. Yep, I think that's about the worst place. So 6 months after my very first event, I'm on a plane to this place that you see behind me here. This has been about August of 2004, and the place changed my life. I learned more lessons in the year that I spent in the desert there in Darfur than I've learned in the previous, 24, 25 years of my life before that. One of the first ones was here in this camp. It's called Marla Camp. 10,000 people living in this refugee camp here. And I had my little point and shoot camera with me, and I snapped this shot. This was the beginning of their 4 to 5 hour walk every day outside of their camp to find water. Mostly women and children. And when these women and children would walk back and bring that water, it actually would make the youngest kids quite sick because the water they found was filthy. I remember staring at that and saying, I've got to do something about this. And so we set up, it took us a while, we set up a water point right in the middle of their camp. Clean water, not looking like, chocolate milk like the other water that they were drinking. Clean water that was not making them sick, and it was only 3 or 4 minutes for them to get that bucket, not 4 or 5 hours. And on top of that, the whole reason why they were living in camps is in that genocide, it was pretty insecure. So the whole concept of safety in numbers, and they had a local rebel group I'll talk about in just a minute that was keeping them safe. But when they walked out of that camp, that's when bad things happen to women and children in a war setting. So you should see the change that day, that very first day that they walked to that tank and they filled up their jugs with clean water, and it took them 4 or 5 minutes instead of hours. All these kids, thousands of them, they surrounded me and my men, and they all just started cheering and chanting, Moya, Moya, which is the local word there for water. And then next thing you know, they all broke off and just started playing and going crazy. And I realized that this is probably the first time since this war started that these kids actually got to be children. It was a huge day for me and made me realize this water crisis, it does so much more than steal their physical lives. But kids all around the world are walking hours upon hours every day. It steals their childhood. They don't get a chance to be kids. They're working, they're walking to get their most basic need every day.